the time most islanders started work on Tuesday, Grands Vaux residents were fighting rising water levels that threatened to leave them homeless. Half a month's rain fell in a single day, drains across the island were overwhelmed, and the reservoir overspilled. Almost 60 households were evacuated, and a major incident was declared as emergency services worked tirelessly in the water. It's not the first time Grands Vaux has been hit with flooding, but residents have said this time was the worst it's ever been. Mark Manton, Jersey Water's Head of Production Operations, joins me, James Yearn, on this Bailiwick News Pod to discuss exactly what took place. I started by asking him why the recent flooding was so bad.
Persistent rain over days and days, and then on Tuesday or Monday night into Tuesday morning we had very heavy rainfall across the entire island. The sheer volume of rainfall overwhelmed the catchments across the island, the streams, and then also the drainage network that would naturally take that water away from site and normally operates to do that. So the weather is the simple answer.
And we know about half a month's rainfall fell in a single day. How does Jersey Water cope with that?
So we have instrumentation that tells us when levels have risen, and we have high level alarms, particularly at the Grands Vaux catchment because of the school and the housing downstream. So I got alerted first thing on Tuesday morning that the high level alarm and the high level alarm had triggered. And then we went into trying to manage the situation. Warning wise, we obviously look at the weather forecasts. We get those from the Met Office on a daily basis. I don't think the amount of water was predicted. It was certainly intent, or maybe the amount with the rate in which the water came, the rain came. It also coincided with the night before we had high winds on the island, if you recall, which was sort of a double whammy. So the fact that a lot of debris from trees, leaves, branches, you name it, had come down the night before, that wouldn't have helped the situation on Tuesday. That will have all ended up in the drainage systems. We were out first thing and all night, and ever since, to be honest, clearing screens of debris, making sure that the water's flowing. And managing that sort of path that the water wants to take.
And we know lots of water was being pumped out, and I believe still is, of Grands Vaux.
Yes, so in terms of pumping, so in terms of Jersey Water pumping, I don't have any figures on the drainage system. That's not something Jersey Water manages. But from the reservoir, we're pulling over 600 cubic metres of water every hour, and have been since Tuesday morning. We had to completely reorganise our raw water network so that we could take that water safely into the system. We were pushing it to other reservoirs that were able to take that water. All our reservoirs are full, so it was a bit of risk management to put them to areas that were least affected. Grands Vaux is particularly a problem because the catchment area, and when I say catchment area, I mean the area of land where if the rain falls, it ends up in that valley. It's our largest catchment, so that's going to catch the most amount of water. We reconfigured our raw water network to alleviate the amount of water in the valley, and are still doing so.
And what's the rate on that? Because I'm hearing it's upwards of 600 plus cubic metres per hour.
Yeah, over 600 cubic metres an hour. So we're sending a proportion of that, small proportion of that, to Queen's Valley still, and the rest we're putting to our treatment works.
Sewage and debris and contaminants, does that present a risk from the sewage treatment point of view? Is it working extra hard to keep our water clean?
So the wastewater pumping stations that pump the sewage around, I believe, all met capacity on the morning of that Tuesday, and we're being overwhelmed. I think you can see that from the drains that are lifting.
And smell it in some cases.
it's massively dilute. But to answer your question directly, there is a heightened risk. It's not unmanageable. We can take in a lot worse water into our treatment works and treat them safely. We monitor the quality of the water continuously at both treatment works. Both treatment works are performing brilliantly, even though we swapped and changed the blends of water pretty quickly on Tuesday. They both reacted really well. And we have no qualms on water quality, and all our parameters are really good.
And the response, I think most would agree, has been excellent from emergency services and indeed Jersey Water and Andium, etc. But lots of people, residents in particular, that I spoke to, will wonder what can be done to stop this happening again.
Sure, and my heart goes to them, because I was down at Grands Vaux. I've been down there for days now. We couldn't help, physically at people's properties per se. What we could do is get the water out of the area as fast as we could. And my teams have been superb at getting that water out, upping the pump rates. I had engineers actually changing hard-coded parameters within the pumping station so that we could increase the volume of water we were taking out, sort of pushing everything to the limits. And we continue to do so. So in terms of how do we stop it happening in the future, the honest answer is we need to speak with all of the parties involved, because drainage will be an absolutely key parameter there. That's not in our control. I can't answer that question from a Jersey Water only perspective. But Jersey Water will be working absolutely shoulder to shoulder with government, with IHE in government, who manage the drainage network. Planning response. There is a strategic island plan, which is already looking at sort of areas that are prone to risk of flooding, and we will work towards that plan.
Certainly, but what could the options be? I know you just mentioned drainage, but could we also look at building the reservoir higher? Is that something that we could do? Yeah,
I can understand why people think that increasing the height of the reservoir dam wouldn't actually help, because you'd fill it, and then the rate of change. This is why I go back to the point about the weather. When you get that intense weather, your reservoir will fill. It will fill at a rapid rate. As soon as it gets full, that volume of water is going to go downstream. So you can use some reservoirs are designed for attenuation, which is when you keep them empty, and then as the flood water comes, they fill up. But that's not what Grands Vaux reservoir or any of Jersey Water's reservoirs are designed for. You have to ask the question, why is the reservoir there? The reservoir's there because the island needs to drink water, and it's a fresh water source from which we treat from. We don't actually have enough water in Jersey. I know it's the wrong thing to say this week because we're absolutely inundated, but
what is the deficit at the moment?
So the deficit is approaching, well, in 2025 it will be predicted to be about 3.9 million litres per day if we don't do anything right now. Now, obviously, there are schemes in place to improve that. In 2020, it was...
what are the schemes?
So, in 2020, it was minus 2 megalitres. So it's going up as the population increases. And people's demand stays roughly the same. So one of the initiatives is work on the demand side of the equation, try and get people to reduce the amount of water they're using. It's not going to bridge the whole gap, but it helps. So there's an initiative on that side. Leakage reduction, we've got very, very good leakage in Jersey. We're very fortunate that. I'm very fortunate as production manager who puts the treated water into the network to know that our network team have good control on that.
But is it the case that we're actually better than other jurisdictions, the UK, for example?
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. We have very enviable leakage numbers if you would speak to a UK equivalent. But we can always do better. So that's being targeted. We're always inching the boundaries there, trying to get it down further and further and further. There are restrictions we can put in place. Everyone will be aware in the summer, hose pipe bans, we've got essential use sort of restrictions that we can put in place if needed. So that's another way of doing the demand side. And then on the supply side, we've got we've got a desalination plant in Jersey, which is a luxury. But it's soon become, with climate change, it will become essential. So we're looking at expanding that. We're looking at expanding that by another 50% minimum right now. We talk about target catchment protections. So that won't gain us any volume. We won't solve our deficit using that, but what it'll do is protect it. And that's sort of almost management speak really for if somebody pollutes something, if somebody polluted one of our catchments or one of our reservoirs, that completely isolates that source. So even though it doesn't gain us, it protects it, it makes us more resilient.
Based on what you've just told me then, is there a need for a new reservoir?
Yeah, that's all. So we do a water resources drought management plan every 5 years. The last one was 2020, that's why I quoted that number before. It's being worked on now and be released again in 2025 is the target. And a new reservoir features or expansion of an existing reservoir is probably the more pragmatic one.
Which one?
So Val de la Mar's the sort of most viable option. But there's complications with, it's very easy to say. That would be a multi-million pound huge infrastructure project. It puts the island at risk whilst you do it because you lose your reservoir whilst you do it. It would gain us 1.9 million litres a day. So that's not volume of expansion, that's how much we can gain from having it there. Going back to Tuesday, Val de la Mar was strategic for us, so we were able to move water from Grands Vaux to treatment in Queens Valley. But this wasn't just a Grands Vaux problem in the island. People who live in St Peter's Valley will know there was major problems there. Waterworks Valley, major problems. So we were moving water from the bottom of Waterworks Valley back up the valley to a place called La Hague. And then from La Hague, we were shifting that at 670 cubic metres an hour at one point across to Val de la Mar. So we were trying to alleviate all these poor people who were seeing the water levels rising, just trying to take the edge off it, trying to shift the water. And then once it got to Val de la Mar and Queens Valley, then it was going out to sea. So it was all about very dynamically, very quickly adjusting our network and shifting that water out.
Mark Manton, Jersey Water's Head of Production Operations, thanks for your time. For the latest updates on the Grands Vaux flooding and other news, you can follow Bailiwick Express and our sister publication, the Jersey Evening Post. And if you get a moment, please like, share and even review this podcast. It helps a lot. But for now, from the Bailiwick News team, thanks for listening. More next week.